She was born in the shadows of war, mocked as an ugly child, and left to hunger in a tunnel where survival felt impossible. Yet Sophia Loren, against every cruel whisper, rose to become the face of Italian cinema, a symbol of grace and resilience known around the world. Behind the dazzling gowns and timeless beauty, however, lay a story marked by abandonment, scandal, and heartbreaks that fame could never erase. At nearly 90, her name still carries magic, but her private life reveals wounds that never healed. How does a woman adored by millions carry such sorrow in silence? Sophia Loren's childhood was forged in hardship, a world marked by hunger, fear, and absence. Born in 1934 to an unwed mother, she entered life already branded with stigma. Her father abandoned the family, leaving her mother, Romilda, to raise Sophia and her younger sister, with nothing but willpower. Poverty was relentless. At one point, they lived for months in a dark tunnel, begging for scraps of food and water. The outbreak of World War II turned daily struggle into sheer survival. Bombs rained over her hometown of Pozzuoli, and one attack left young Sophia with a scar on her chin, a physical reminder of the chaos she could never forget. Malnourished, frail, and mocked for her awkward looks, she was nicknamed Toothpick by classmates who could not see the beauty that was quietly beginning to emerge. And yet, even in the darkest days, there were flickers of light. Allied soldiers passing through her grandmother's home brought laughter, taught her English phrases, and once gifted her a bar of chocolate, an unimaginable luxury in those times. These small mercies offered a glimpse of another world, hinting that beyond despair, life could still hold wonder. From those fragile beginnings, resilience took root, shaping the woman Sophia would one day become. By her late teens, Sophia Loren's fragile appearance had begun to transform. The girl once mocked for her thin frame and sharp features was slowly emerging as someone extraordinary. Her mother, Romilda, who had always believed in her hidden radiance, encouraged her to enter local beauty contests. At just 17, Sophia stepped onto the stage of a small pageant in Naples, and destiny intervened. In the audience was Carlo Ponti, one of Italy's most respected producers, who immediately recognized not only her beauty, but her raw talent. The path to stardom, however, was never simple. During an early screen test, a cameraman dismissed her harshly. Her nose is too long, her mouth too big. Even Ponti, her mentor, suggested surgery to soften her features. Sophia's response was unwavering. "If I must cut my nose to be in films, I'll return to Pozzuoli. I will not change who I am." That defiance became the essence of her identity. With Ponti's support, she began to secure roles, inching her way into Italian cinema despite constant comparisons to rival Gina Lollobrigida. Audiences were captivated not by perfection, but by authenticity, the fire in her eyes, the sincerity in her performances. From ridicule to recognition, Sophia Loren was becoming a star destined to conquer the world stage. Sophia Loren's love story with Carlo Ponti unfolded like a film script, filled with passion, scandal, and perseverance. He was 22 years older, a powerful producer, and still legally married when their paths crossed. For Sophia, who had grown up abandoned by her father, Ponti was more than a mentor. He became the figure of protection and stability she had long craved. His presence shaped her not only as an actress, but as a woman learning to trust love. Yet their relationship was tested from the beginning. The Catholic Church refused to recognize Ponti's divorce, casting their romance as immoral. Determined to be together, They married by proxy in Mexico, only to be accused of bigamy when the secret came to light. Overnight, the couple were branded outcasts. They lived in exile, drifting between countries, their love forced into the shadows. For nearly a decade, scandal and uncertainty defined their private lives. Finally, in 1966, with French citizenship secured, they married legally in Paris. This victory ended years of turmoil and gave them the freedom to live openly. Together they raised two sons, Carlo Jr. and Eduardo, building a family rooted in creativity and devotion. Against the odds, Sophia found in Ponti what she had been denied as a child: a true home, forged through loyalty and love. At the height of her fame, when Sophia Loren seemed untouchable, life delivered one of its cruelest twists. In 1980, a forgotten tax return from 1963 resurfaced, an oversight she believed had been handled by a financial advisor long since dead. What began as a manageable sum had grown, with penalties and interest, into a staggering debt. For the Italian courts, it became a scandal. For Sophia, it was a humiliation that threatened to overshadow decades of triumph. The headlines were merciless: one of the world's most beloved actresses accused of fraud. Loren defended herself with dignity, insisting, "I am not a crook." Yet her words did little to soften the blow. In 1982, the unthinkable happened. The court sentenced her to serve time in prison. For millions who adored her, it felt impossible to reconcile the glamorous star with the image of a convicted woman walking into a cell. She spent 17 days behind bars, dressed with the same elegance she had carried on the red carpet, masking the weight of shame with poise. Fellow inmates hung posters reading "Pardon, Sophia," a gesture of solidarity that reminded her she was still loved. But beneath the grace, it was a searing reminder that fame could not protect her from life's harshest judgments. For Sophia Loren, the deepest wounds were not carved by critics or courts, but by love and loss. Throughout her life, she had carried the absence of her father, a man who hovered only briefly at the edges of her world before vanishing again. On his deathbed, when most children seek comfort, Sophia confessed she wished she had been given another father. That quiet ache never fully healed, lingering like an invisible scar beneath her public radiance. But the greatest sorrow came decades later with the death of Carlo Ponti in 2007. He had been by her side for more than 50 years, mentor, husband, protector, and the anchor of her entire being. Losing him was not just losing a partner, but the life they had built together through sacrifice and defiance. Friends described her grief as immeasurable, a silence that filled the once vibrant home. For Sophia, it was the end of the great love story that had defined her existence. She chose not to remarry, carrying Carlo's memory as both comfort and burden. Alone, she navigated the later years of life with dignity, but behind the elegance remained a widow's solitude. Even for a woman adored worldwide, love lost became the heaviest role she would ever play. In the years after Carlo Ponti's passing, Sophia Loren retreated from the public eye, choosing a quieter existence far from the dazzling spotlights that once defined her. She appeared occasionally at film festivals or charity events, her presence still magnetic, yet her life became centered on family. Her sons, Carlo Jr., a conductor, and Eduardo, a director, carried forward the creative flame, a living extension of the world she and Ponti had built together. Though age slowed her, Loren's influence never faded. For generations of actresses, she remained the embodiment of authenticity, the woman who refused to alter her nose, who proved that beauty could coexist with strength, who embraced vulnerability as part of her art. She had turned her childhood scars into a performance style that resonated across cultures and decades. Her films, Two Women, Marriage Italian Style, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, stood as timeless testaments to her craft. Awards and honors, from the Academy to the Golden Globes, could never fully capture the depth of her impact. Beyond trophies, her legacy was the emotional truth she brought to every role. Sophia Loren's story was not only about fame, but about endurance. From tunnels of hunger to international stages, she became proof that resilience can carve beauty even out of pain. Sophia Loren's journey is not merely the story of a movie star. It is the portrait of a woman who endured hunger, ridicule, exile, scandal, and devastating loss, yet carried herself with dignity until the end. Behind every photograph of glamour lies a child once mocked as too thin, a mother who bartered scraps of food to keep her alive, and a widow who carried her great love as both blessing and burden. Her life reminds us that beauty is not found in perfection, but in resilience, in the ability to rise after every fall. At nearly 90, Sophia's presence still commands awe. But the true lesson of her story is not fame or fortune. It is the quiet strength to stay authentic when the world demands you change, and the courage to love even when it means inevitable heartbreak. She teaches us that a legacy is not built only on awards, but on how one's spirit touches others and endures through time. Perhaps the question is not how Sophia Loren lived with sadness, but how she transformed it into grace. And now, dear viewer, what do you see in her journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more untold stories, and let us continue keeping alive the memory of icons who shaped our dreams.